Today, we are diving deep into the very soul of India's constitution, the Preamble. Now, this is way more than just a simple introduction. It's really a nation's declaration of identity. And believe me, its story is packed with high-stakes legal drama and some really intense political debate. To really get this, let's start with a powerful idea from the brilliant jurist N.A. Pakawala. He called the Preamble the identity card of the Constitution. And that just nails it, doesn't it? It tells you who the Constitution is, where it comes from, and what it stands for, all before you've even read a single article. So here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to trace the Preamble's incredible evolution. We'll start at its creation, then follow it right into the courtroom where its power was challenged. We'll see a landmark reversal, dig into a controversial amendment, and then look at the debates that are still shaping its future today. All right, first things first. What exactly is a preamble? And what were India's founding members really hoping it would accomplish? Let's break down its original mission. Think of a preamble as a mission statement. It lays out the entire philosophy and the core purpose of a document. Fun fact, the American Constitution was the first to have one, and you can totally see that influence in India's famous opening words, "We the people." This timeline really shows you the absolute roller coaster this preamble has been on. I mean, look at these dates. It starts as a vision in 46, gets adopted in 49, and then bam, it's legally challenged in 1960. Its powers then restored in 73, only to be changed again in 76. This is basically our roadmap for the rest of our journey. The original preamble was really built on three core ideas. First, the source of all its power, we the people of India. And that's a huge deal. It means the ultimate authority rests with the citizens. Second, it defined the kind of state India would be, a sovereign, democratic republic. And third, it laid out these incredible goals for its people, justice, liberty, equality, and a sense of brotherhood or fraternity. But for all its beautiful, inspiring words, a huge question started to emerge. Was this preface legally binding, or was it just nice words? Well, that uncertainty was about to put the preamble on trial for the first time.
And this was the central mystery, right? Could you actually walk into a courtroom and use the preamble to make a case? Did it give the government any power or put any limits on it? Or was it just a philosophical guide with no real teeth?
The first real showdown finally happened in 1960. The case was known as the Berubari Union case, and it basically forced the Supreme Court to make a call, once and for all, on the legal status of the preamble. And the verdict was a bombshell. The court declared that the preamble was not part of the Constitution. They said, sure, it's a key to understanding what the framers were thinking, but it wasn't a source of power, and you couldn't enforce it in court. So the bottom line was, India's guiding philosophy was legally powerless. But wait, the story doesn't end there, not by a long shot. 13 years later, the Supreme Court would take another look at this whole question in a case that would completely change Indian law and finally give the preamble its power back. Okay, this was the big one. The Keshavananda Bharati case. A massive 13-judge bench was put together to hear it. I mean, things are serious when they assemble a team that big, and their decision would go down as one of the most important rulings in India's entire history, with the preamble right at the center of it all. And this cable just says it all. Look at that contrast. It's a complete 180. In 1960, the preamble was out. By 1973, it was in. And not just in, but declared an integral part of the Constitution. The Supreme Court had completely flipped its own decision. This was a monumental shift. So how did they do it? How did they give the preamble its teeth back? They came up with this, the basic structure doctrine. It's an ingenious legal idea that says, look, Parliament can amend the Constitution, but it cannot destroy its core identity, its basic structure. And where do you find that basic structure? Well, a lot of it is right there, in the grand vision of the preamble. The preamble now became a shield, protecting the Constitution's most fundamental ideal. So, just as the preamble's power was finally cemented, a whole new chapter began. For the first and only time in its history, the actual words of the preamble were about to be changed, and this all happened during one of the most turbulent times in modern Indian history. The year was 1976, right in the middle of the national emergency, a time when a lot of democratic rules were suspended. the government passed the 42nd Amendment, which was so massive, people started calling it a mini constitution. And it went right in and made direct changes to the preamble.
This slide shows you exactly what they changed. See that? Two new words, socialist and secular, were squeezed right into the core description of India. And down below, unity of the nation was expanded to unity and integrity of the nation. These three little additions would set the stage for a debate that is still raging today.
And that brings us right up to the present day. The addition of socialist and secular has sparked a fierce, never-ending debate about what the preamble should be and whether those words truly belong there. So on one side, you have critics who argue for removing them. They say it messes with the original vision of the founders. They argue the word socialist feels out of place with India's modern, market-driven economy, and that the preamble should stick to timeless principles, not specific political ideologies. But on the other side of the coin, you have defenders who say, hey, these words just made explicit what was already implicitly in the Constitution's DNA. They'll point out that the Supreme Court itself has called secularism a basic feature of the Constitution. In fact, in another case, the court said the amendment actually gave vitality to the whole philosophy. So where do things stand right now? Well, as recently as 2024, the Supreme Court weighed in again. They dismissed the challenges to remove the words, and their reasoning was fascinating. They said that over the decades, these terms have gained widespread acceptance by the ultimate source of power, we, the people of India. So, where does all this leave us? The preamble has journeyed from being a philosophical intro to a legally powerful and still debated part of India's identity. Its future isn't just about the words on a page anymore. It's about a living, breathing commitment.
So what's the path forward from here? Well, experts point to a few key things. First, we need more constitutional literacy, so everyone understands these ideals. Second, the courts need to stay vigilant as the guardians of that basic structure. Third, policies need to strike a balance between economic growth and social justice. And finally, we need mature political debate, one that respects these core constitutional values.
And so, we'll leave you with this final thought. The preamble began as a promise. It became the Constitution's soul. After all the court battles and political changes, its core tension is still there. As India continues to charge into the future, the ultimate question is, who gets to be the conscience that interprets this soul for the next generation?